In other world news today, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has made a surprise visit to the eastern front lines near Bakhmut today, the site of some of the bloodiest battles in the war. The trip comes hours after Russian drone strikes hit Kyiv this morning, killing at least 4 people there. Ukrainian authorities say a high school was among the buildings hit. Well, let's cross live then to Kyiv. Correspondent Gulliver Cragg is standing by with the latest. And Gulliver, your thoughts first of all then on Zelensky's trip today to the Eastern Front. This coming just a few weeks after it was being reported that Ukraine was considering a tactical retreat in that area.
Yes, and it comes at a time when a lot of people in Ukraine are wondering whether a tactical retreat might not have been the better thing to do. There's a lot of concern about the losses that the Ukrainian armed forces are taking on the Bakhmut front line, and some people have been quite openly criticising the government's decision to try to hold on to the city. But it also comes at a time when, according to British intelligence and some other observers, perhaps there's hope that the intensity of the Russian offensive towards Bakhmut is dying down. The Wagner criminals who were recruited from Russian prisons were recruited for 6 months. Some of them, those who've survived, are now seeing their contracts come to term and they can supposedly leave. There's also questions about how much ammunition the Russians have got there. So some have been talking about the Russian offensive on Bakhmut culminating. And if so, that would mean it would be culminating in a failure, essentially, because although the Russian forces have managed to take a sizable chunk of the city, the real core, the city centre, is in Ukrainian hands, and the Russians have not been able to surround Ukrainian forces there. They haven't made any significant territorial gains for many, many days now, actually. I think maybe even for a couple of weeks. They will look like they were about to encircle the Ukrainian forces and trap them in Bakhmut, but they don't seem to have been able to do that. So Volodymyr Zelensky and his team may soon be saying that they feel vindicated in this controversial decision to try to hold on to Bakhmut, but others may continue to criticise them all the same, because even if Ukraine does end up holding Bakhmut, there's a question about the impact the cost of this battle will have had on Ukraine's potential for a counter-offensive, which is widely expected to start in the next few weeks.
And Gulliver, away from the front lines, the Russian strikes on Ukraine are continuing today. Just tell us what's been happening.
Well, as you mentioned, there was a drone strike overnight which hit Kyiv region, actually, not the capital itself, but the town where there were fatalities is Rzyziv, which is about an hour's drive to the southeast of Kyiv. There, apparently, yes, buildings connected to a school were hit, and there are sadly 4 people reported killed. And then just today, this morning, just before lunchtime, there were 3 explosions reported in Zaporizhia in eastern Ukraine, and one of those strikes appears to have hit simultaneously 2 residential buildings that are right next to each other. 1 person is reported killed in that attack and some 25 wounded.
Gulliver Cragg, live in Kyiv. Thanks very much indeed.